Oh, hello, team. Hello.
Hey
Hey
Dale, how
Dale,
you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Yeah, hanging
good.
in there.
Ben's at
Good.
the ocean.
I
He's doing good.
have a beautiful vista.
All right. Well, great. So Mark had posed a question. Mark Buelsing had posed a question about menus, and so that got on the agenda. That's the benefit of if you give me notice, I'll do a little bit of research. But here we go. So this is low code Campfire number 13 already. Sorry I missed you guys last week. I was out for number 12, but Reza took care of us. Um, let's see. This is a very informal gathering. It's on all skill levels. It's an opportunity to share techniques, challenges, experiences, and we sure hope you bring something to show or bring ideas and suggestions. You might have your cell phone camera out to snap some QR codes coming up. We record all the past editions, and except for special occasions, we post them all to YouTube, and so you can use that QR code to get to our previously recorded editions. We have a very informal agenda. If you want to, you can say hi, especially if you're new to the group. But then we just this is a meeting format, so everybody can just jump in, show, tell, chat, whatever you like. If you have noise going on in the background, we'd appreciate it if you would mute. I've got a dog running around here. My stepdog has joined for today. He's staying for 4 or 5 days, and he may make noise in the background, so I might be the one muting. If you don't participate, there is a penalty. I start singing. We do have a Google form where you can submit questions and topics, and this is where Mark Buelsing had participated and sent a topic, so it gave me a chance to prepare and ask questions and actually learn something. So thanks for doing that. Anybody new to the group that would like to say hi?
I'm new. Hi.
I was gonna say, Jen, don't make me call you out.
Hey John.
Hi.
Hi, Jen.
So let's see. One of the things I'll mention, we are in a mode of trying to get reviews on Capterra. We're looking for your honest opinions about the software. And so if you haven't had a chance to participate and you could take, I don't know if anybody's done this, I think it's 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, so you don't have to invest your life in it. And I think there's also a $20 gift card in it for you if you do that. Has anybody done this, and was it a big deal?
I got started, but I didn't complete it.
Okay, well, so is it, so does that mean it is a big deal?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Hi, everybody. I'm Mark.
Nice, Robert.
I did do it, and it was not a big deal at all. I mean, I think 5 minutes was about right on point to go through the process to leave a review, and it was great because they do kick you that gift card right afterwards.
Well, great. Well, we appreciate that, and I know we can't buy you off with $20, but you know, being able, just taking the time to give us a little bit of honest opinion would certainly be nice. I would do it, but I think I'm enjoined from participating. So first, I'll ask if there's any burning topics that somebody needs to jump in with, and then we'll go with Mark's topic.
Mark's topic is not a burning topic, so go ahead, you guys.
I have a question, actually.
Yes, sir.
I actually posted this in the community, but I haven't gotten any feedback, so I don't know if it's just that no one saw it or there really is no answer. But I came across a situation where someone here had a requirement to stitch together a bunch of Excel files. One of our clients that was sending us data was splitting out all of their data into days, and they just wanted one huge file encapsulating everything. So I figured, pretty simple, upload all the Excel files, open up an entity, and just continually load all of them into one entity and then export the entity out. There was some records that I needed to filter out in the process. So what I found lacking, or maybe I just don't know how to do it, is the ability to, number one, remove a property from an entity, and number two, when filtering what an entity can see in that filtering option, I see where you could put a field name and a value equal to, but is there a way to do not equal to or like? Those were my two questions.
So I will admit, I saw your question. I did spend a little time on it and didn't get anywhere with it. So there's a lack of response on my side for that one. And I don't know how to accomplish that. So before I go on, if anybody else knows how to accomplish that, that'd be great. Beyond that, I had wondered. Okay, so the first question always is how to make things work the way, within the structure of the product. And then, the second question is, so workaround, what else can you do? And my mind jumps to workaround in this case. Have you found a workaround yet then?
Not really. The only thing short answer is no. What I ended up having to do is, when I'm looping through every record, if the first few characters of the row isn't what I expect, I'm adding a property at the end saying whether it's the row I expect or not, like true false type of thing. And then at the very end, I remove all of the records that are not what I want, so that I can export only what I want, but it still leaves that one additional column that I added for my testing purposes. I don't want that exported, but there's no way to remove that property once it's been added. So I'm stuck exporting my file again with an additional column at the end that I really don't want. It was just basically for identification purposes.
And the reason I asked you particularly if you found a workaround is you're great at it, right? You've got
I
a big
tried
bag
everything
of
I could think of.
So I had wondered about if you import the entity into a SQL table and worked with it from there, so manipulate it from within that, whether that would get you where you want to go.
I thought about that. It just adds a whole nother layer of complexity, because the way this is set up, I'm setting it up kind of like a queue, because multiple people could come in here and upload batches. So if I start using a table, then I really have to start tracking who's adding what to the table and making sure that other people who may be running a batch at the same time aren't going to wind up stepping on each other. When I do it just strictly through the actions, everything is encapsulated within its own little world, and I don't have to worry about multiple users stepping on each other with data
and leftover stuff.
Exactly, because then that's also it's data rights to the hard drive, so database is going to grow, then it's going to shrink, and that's a little bit more overhead on that.
So beyond that, I don't have an answer. I will circle back to it though and see if I'll spend some more time on it later today or next week.
Could you make an entity from your final entity, and then the last one wouldn't have the last column? Could you do something like that?
Sorry, I was on mute. Did not do that, only because I don't know how many properties are going to be in the file. I'm not forcing any type of check on the number of fields coming in on the Excel. So in order for me to create a new entity and then copy everything over minus a field, I pretty much need to know how many fields there are and then skip the last, type of thing. And because it's dynamic, I don't see how I'd really be able to do that, because I'd have to basically call the field names directly.
So this is the question here, right? 1495.
That is it.
Okay. So just so I understand your scenario, if they're providing something that has extra, has columns that you don't expect, are those finding their way into the entity, or only the ones that match names? Or
You know what? I mean, I don't know if it would help to show what I have. It might make it a little clearer.
if you don't mind showing it, that'd be great, because now it's
Yeah.
evidence. Yeah.
Sure, no problem.
Let me stop sharing. Okay.
And, where'd my Zoom go? There it is.
Okay. Do you hear
I
my
just
step dog?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just got to figure out which screen I'm sharing. I got 4 monitors here. Okay. Hopefully you guys see this one.
Yep.
Okay. So basically it's like I said, it's a queue. So it's in scheduler. Basically runs on a particular interval. All I'm doing is, this is pulling out what's in the queue that needs to be processed. And then this is where I'm actually doing the work. So the first thing I'm doing, all right, so yeah, that's the other thing that kind of gets me to is in a lot of cases, I have to clear the entity out because it's a temporary entity. It's the same name. So it steps on each other because it always does an append every time you load an entity. There's no feature in here to say erase entity before load. I really would like that because even with the remove entities, if you don't put a criteria, it won't remove anything. So you have to match something. So I always ended up having to add, just so you could see really quick. Oh, you can't see here. In my select statements, I hard code just a random field name with the number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
then
that
I
you
just say that field 1. When it finds that, delete it. And I put that first. So when it comes through, if it finds that I've loaded it previously, it just deletes everything out of there. So that would be a nice feature to add. But anyway, so I'm coming in here, I'm loading the files that I need to do. Then this is where I do the combine. So this is where it winds up being a little bit of a pain. So I'm loading the Excel, including all the fields. Deleting the file after I load. And this is the weird thing that I'm ending up doing. On the entity itself, I have to determine if the very first row starts with 800, because that's an actual data row for me. Otherwise, it's like header rows, and they could be multiple header rows that I just want to exclude.
Mm-hmm.
If it's true, then I'm adding is data row to the end of that record with the wording remove this column. The reason I'm doing that is even though this is a true data row and this is not one that's going to be deleted, when I export it, I want the user to see remove this column. So they highlight the column and delete it.
Yep.
And then otherwise, if it's a non-data row, I just mark it false. And then when I serialize, I say, this is where I'm saying it would be nice if I had a like or something here as well, because it would help me. I just basically say serialize this data back to Excel only where the is data row column, which is the one I created, is said to say, remove this column. I know it sounds backwards, but
No, I get it. It's for the instruction for the end user.
yeah. So the ones that came out false, which are not data rows, get excluded. They don't get written out. But then again, it's kind of twofold. Number one is I would like to be able to remove this column to begin with and not have it export. And the other thing that would be nice is if there was a way to say, like, here is data row not equal to or like or something to that effect, because then, like, for argument's sake, when I'm loading this
Sure,
entity,
essentially it's only able to process an equal value.
right, when I'm going through it, it would be nice to be able to do something other than equal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I just got a spitball idea for you. It seems like it would potentially work, but it would probably take a lot more effort. Is you can do pretty much anything you want with JavaScript. So if you put a JavaScript task in the middle of this with Java, and assuming you could manipulate your entity list with JavaScript, or you could loop through your object with JavaScript. JavaScript enables you to evaluate the properties on an object, and you could find your 800 name property. And then potentially, I'm trying to think about how to get that back into an entity list, but you could potentially use JavaScript to spit out a JSON object and then do the parse back to entity for JSON and get that back to your entity list and proceed with that. So if you really wanted to go hardcore, I think you could probably do this with a JavaScript action. That's just my spitballing.
The only problem with that, I mean, unless I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dale, when you're loading entities, this is internal to DNN. It's its own internal entity way of dealing with stuff. This is not accessible once it's loaded into an entity through JavaScript. It's a memory type thing. So it would basically be, from my understanding, if I'm understanding what you're saying, David, I would have to basically chuck all this logic and go a different route and figure out a way to load an Excel file to something within JavaScript. And that's part of the problem, because I'm using load entities from a SQL, load entities from Excel. So at this point,
you're doing load entities from Excel. Aren't they available via tokens at that point? And so your entities are available as tokens, which, and I think it was like 3 weeks ago in one of these meetings where they pulled out, someone pulled out the JavaScript action and was going through that. And so then you could access the tokens via JavaScript.
I mean, it is a token here as an entity name, but I don't know if you were to use this in a JavaScript, what it would spit out.
I'm trying to remember. The JavaScript action doesn't actually work on the system I'm on because of some configuration issues, so I haven't used it much. But based on what, who was it, Raz or Raza? I'm not sure.
I think Reza had an example of this.
Yeah, an example, and it kind of blew. I think it blew a lot of us away that were in that thing. We're like, whoa, this is really powerful to work with. And so I'm not 100% sure it would work, but I know you can access the tokens in a JavaScript task. It looked like basically every token that was available at the time of your JavaScript task action, I should say, executing was available as a JavaScript variable at that point. And so I don't know how that applies to collections, because you'd have an entity list here, which is a collection, but assuming you could access the collection, my gut's telling me you could then loop through the collection, do whatever you want, because at that point you're in JavaScript, you can enumerate through the properties and build a whole new object that you then spit out as a collection. So it's the collection interaction with the JavaScript I'm not sure about, but my gut's telling me that there's potentially something you could do there, but it probably would take a lot of effort to sort it out.
Yeah, that's the thing with that documentation. It's like, it's a complete guessing game, because I don't know what this token is going to resolve to when it's used in Java. And then on top of that, I have to figure out a way to get the Java back into an entity in DNN so that I can then do the export to an Excel file again.
Yeah, and the accessing the token as a collection, I'm not quite sure. I know because I know those resolved as variables in JavaScript according to what was that 3 or 4 weeks ago that we went through. Getting it back in, I'm not sure if that would be a huge issue because I would think you could return JavaScript, build a JSON object and return that as JavaScript to your next task, and then you can just do a what's it like load entities from JSON or something like that, whatever that action is called.
Yeah.
And then you're back. I think that part's easy. I think it's the getting it into your JavaScript and working through that. I think that's the one that's going to cause you a bit of gray hair. But my instinct is telling me there's a way to do it that way. I'm just the exact details might be a little hair pulling.
So yeah, I was looking, we did talk about that in Campfire. I was trying to find it and I have not yet, but Reza was demonstrating being able to access that. He did access some content and this may apply. Back to your question for a moment, Ben, I just want to make sure I understand when for a particular user that's uploading a batch of files, are they all in the same, are we assuming they're all in the same, they have the same number of columns and the columns are the same? No.
That's the thing. I'm not doing, as you can see here, I'm not doing any type of check. I'm just including all fields. If they actually submit multiple files and they're of different design, that's on them. That's user error. I'm not going as far as checking that. So if one of them has 5 columns, the next one has 12 columns, it's just stitching all the files together. The only thing it cares about during this process is that the very first 3 characters have to be 800 in each row.
For the data, to denote data. Great. Okay, well, I will spend some time on that before next week. I don't know if you're, so you have a solution that's working, so it's not like this is a burning, it's not great.
I mean, it's working to the point where, it's exporting the file with that one final column at the end that says, remove this column.
Okay. All right, well, I'll take a little bit of stab at it, and thanks for showing that because it helps to, I'll run through this again when we get into that. All right.
Much appreciated.
Let's see. So thanks for, bringing that back up. I'm sorry I hadn't gotten an answer to that. So it's obviously a little bit more of a thorny problem than some of the other ones. And while we're on the topic of the community forum, the part where you and others jump in with answers to community questions is very appreciated by the head of support. So thanks for doing that.
Anytime. It's fun.
So Plantanet menus, I have I spent a few minutes on this. It's a pretty good story, not too hard to do. I'll probably have timed out here now. I've forgotten, but there's a couple of parts to this, and I'll just kind of show what I've learned today. It's really not that hard. And let's see, I am logged in. Great. So I've got a website here that is actually, this is the one I was showing in Low Code Cafe with the QR login and things like that. And the idea is, so the scenario is, hey, can I show a different menu to my front-end users than my back-end users? So my back-end users might be the low-code engineers and the admins, but let's say managers and users want to, you want to give them a completely different menu. So I have a scenario that I can show that will allow you to do that, but then, there's some caveats at the end, so we'll get to that. So if you go into edit mode on a page as an admin, you'll get the manage option, which will let you get into the menu system. And this is particularly for page builder. That's the caveat. We'll talk about more about non-page builder pages in a minute. But it brings you into the menu system. And for comparison, I've got the same site I'm logged in as manager here, and I have the same menu. So the goal would be, if I do this right, we will end up with a different menu for manager than we end up with for everyone else. So the first step is, if you go into the manage of the menu, and then what you're going to see is that we have different profiles in this simple versus advanced scenario. So by default, we're in a simple scenario with the default menu. You can't change it. And it's the DNN standard menu, and it provides all the stuff up here. So what we're going to do is create two new profiles, a back-end and a front-end menu. This particular interface kind of requires you to do some saving along the way, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do a front-end menu, and this is for my app. And I'm just going to leave the configuration as it is. I'm not going to sync it with the DNN menu, which means that I have to tell it the pages that I want to be on there. So let's say, for example, I want these people to be able to access the home page, and they get to look at our artwork, and they get to see an About Us page, but that's it. They can't see anything else. And so that is the front-end menu design. And I'll save that. And then I'm going to create, so now you see we have the default, and now we have another profile, the front-end menu. So I'm going to create a back-end menu. And on this one, I'm going to say that I want to sync it with DNN. Now I could say no sync and build the menu myself, but this is I'm going to take the lazy way for this one for a moment. So I'm going to say sync with DNN, and that just means that the DNN menu is going to control this one. So I'll save that as well. So now I have three profiles: the back-end menu, the front-end menu, and default. So I'm going to flip, the next thing I'm going to do is flip to advanced and bind these menus into the system. And so we're going to bind in the back-end menu and the front-end menu. And I'm going to remove the default menu. So now we're only dealing with front-end and back-end. That's what's part of this particular page builder menu. Once you have those bound in, you can edit them and work with permissions. So this is my back-end menu, and this is where I tell it, okay, administrators and citizen developers, low-code engineers can see this, and also the super user, but we're not going to let the managers or the users see this menu, this one that is bound to the DNN menu system. So we'll save that. And then if we were to go to the front end menu and do the same thing, again, we can see they have this limited content. I'm going to refresh this page. I'm not sure why it's, so I'm editing. Save, oh, it didn't get bound. All right, my fault. So we'll try again. So we have the backend menu that gets bound, and the front-end menu that gets bound. I'm going to unbind there, and I'm going to save just that much. And then let's see if I can do this right. So we have, okay, now we have our permissions. I don't know what I did wrong there. So managers and users get the front end menu, and we'll save that and just double check our back end menu. Yep, our options are saved there. So if I've if I've done this right, this user is logged in as a super user. When I refresh the page, they should keep everything that they've had. And they do. If I go over to my incognito session here that's manager and refresh the page, now we get just home, artwork, and about us. So this says that now you have taken on through this mechanism, you've taken on exactly what they can see in the front end menu. And as you add content, you can add it and control the menu. So one of the things about this, for example, that, just kind of minor things that you can think about doing, this artwork has this drop down to get to the detail. So, which by itself isn't particularly useful because it's not focused on a particular piece of artwork. So this is the page that you go to when you pick an item and it goes to the detail page. In other words, this doesn't really need to be in the menu. It doesn't have a good value in the menu. So I'm going to go, again, I'm in my front end menu, artwork, and I'm just going to remove this from the menu. It doesn't change the permissions, but it does change what shows up in the menu. I'm going to flip back to my incognito session now. See, I don't have a drop down anymore, but if I pick an artwork, I can still get to that page. Okay, so does that make sense so far? Mark particularly.
Yeah, Dale, that makes a lot of sense. Could you tell or show me again how you got to that menu builder? I missed that part.
Absolutely. So when you're on a page builder page, just by going into edit mode, so I'm going to close out of edit mode, you'll see this disappear. Manage is now gone. But if you go into edit mode, manage appears. So this is a feature of, this is a built-in feature of the page builder menu.
It's that, Dale, do you know if that manage is like a hard-coded name somewhere? I sort of have this technique, and I actually call my page manage. I don't have it for doing the page builder manager. I have it for managing my store stuff, and I've never seen the page builder stuff, and I wonder if it's the same because I'm using that name, and it's almost like a reserved word.
I don't know about so
I believe it is. I'm gonna check it on a different skin real quick, but I'm pretty sure it's always manage, and it shows up as the last item in the menu.
Right.
And this was going to be one of my examples. Okay, once we got through Page Builder, I wanted to kind of show what happens when we get off of Page Builder. So maybe we can explore that just a little bit.
Yeah, Dale, can I interject too? One
Yes.
of the things that that I would like to see is on the screens that the managers and users would be seeing, I'd prefer to have a different theme, like even a store-bought theme, that kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely. And that's exactly where I was going next. So
okay, very good.
Let's see if we can make that happen. I have added a page, this About Us page. It's a just an empty page, and I'm going to go into edit mode on it. And actually, before I do anything, I'm going to look in my incognito as my manager user, and you can see this is just an empty page, and it has the menu that obeys, that's following along with the page builder theme. So if I go to this page and change it to a non-page builder, so for example, I go into advanced appearance and change it to an Exelon. I'm just going to use a default and save. When we refresh the page, we get the .NET Nuke menu. This page only knows how to do it's not the it's not our menu, it's not the NavXP menu, it's the .NET New default menu. So it doesn't know anything about manage, and it's added everything back. So we go to, now we're a little bit of dystopia here. We have artwork, for example. We have access to artwork, and I've seen this before, and I don't know why it did it. It brought back everything into this page. But as a user, right, we go into Home, we go into About Us, and we get this. We have access to all the default .NET Nuke menu. So I think the answer to that is that if you back as a administrator here, going to this page, if we were to add a NavXP menu to this page, and I'm just going to add it in a very open spot, we get the standard. Now we have our NavXP menu, and from a user perspective, if we refresh this page, it's this default menu. So now we're going to configure it and tell it, no, we want advanced, and we're going to bind the same things to it, and front end to it, and unbind default. So now if we save this and go back, refresh, oh, it's not.
If you're an admin, Dale, you're always going to have those roles too, right?
Yep. So, but as a, oh, there we go. Thank you. I got confused back and forth between my target user and where I was doing development. So that's a really great point. So let's, this is the the admin user, and I get to see all these menu options, but going back in now as somebody logged in with only the manager role, I'm now seeing my front end menu as we were seeing it on the page builder one. Okay, so this extra menu now exists. And then, Mark, to your question, what do I do? So this is a Exelon, but it could be any theme. What do I do about that? Well, the theme has in the theme definition, it has a tag that says load the menu, and that gives you the .NET Nuke menu. A small modification, but you actually would have to edit the ASPX, or maybe it's an ASCX, but whatever it is in the theme, to remove that one thing. So if you could get this menu to go away by removing one small component of that theme, and then now you're saying, okay, I'm going to take control of the menu by adding my own and putting it in a container wherever you want to see it.
And just to add on to that, Dale,
Please.
as long as you're going to be in there editing that theme, what I would say is, like, don't edit the main page, like of Zillion, for example, because if there's updates from the skin maker or DNN or anything like that, it's going to override what you did. Make a copy of the page and then call it whatever you want. And just by it being there, like, let's say it's the home template in some folder, just copy that whole thing and call it my home template, right? Now it will show up automatically in your theme menu and stuff on the pages and things like that. But you can edit it and do what Dale said, which is to take out the DNN menu. But what I like to do, because a lot of times, like if you did that here, what would happen is you're going to see the logo up top, and then you're going to see the menu under, and you're like, what if I want the menu up where that one was? What I always do, and we can do a little video on this, it's a lot easier than it sounds. This is just HTML work. a couple of tags of HTML. But what I would do is make a container, all the containers that are on your skins and stuff. I know some people know this, but I'm just saying it for everyone. Like when you go into edit mode, you see the little boxes where you can drag stuff. Those are just IDs that are put in the HTML of that file Dale's talking about. What I like to do is make my own container up top where the menu bar goes. Even a couple, because now you can put neat things. Maybe you want to put an action form that just has a little button that says give feedback or something, and you need a place to put that. So I make myself a container or two, define them just with HTML and divs, and you just give it ID equals whatever you want to call it, and it'll show up. As long as the class of it is like container or something, it's pretty straightforward. Warrants making a 5-minute maybe feature focus or video on this. But it is something, once you do it once, you're like, gosh, that's easy.
Are you by chance meaning pane? You're going to make a pane on a container?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did I say containers? Yes, you were right. Sorry for.
Okay. Yeah, good. That all makes sense to me. Yeah, I got all that.
And
yeah.
So this is not the file system to the system I was just looking at, but I wanted to get to it real quick. So within, at least to show what a little illustration of what Reza was talking about, within portals _default, there's a skins, and so and Exelon. So if we were to go, this home ASCX is the menu that shows up, the theme that shows up as a choice of home within Exelon. And so if we were to open that up, and this is the one that he's saying there's a couple of things you can do. You can either I think, Reza, you were advocating making a full copy of calling it My Exelon.
Yeah, of this like page that you want to edit, because if in this case DNN maintains this one, right? If they make an update to this file, it will overwrite your changes when you upgrade the theme module.
And sometimes, so I have done it in. Okay, what you said makes sense. We can copy and paste this whole folder, and now you'll have an alternate.
I don't mean the whole folder. I just mean the page that you want to edit. So in this case, make it home too.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what I typically do. I do a copy and a paste, and we end up with. Well, I don't have the right rights, but you would end up with a copy of home. Let's see if I can get it done here. Nope, I don't have the right access. Anyway. You would have a copy of, not JPEG, sorry, a copy of home.ascx. This is what it would look like. And so first of all, the question about the menu, there is, register the DNN menu, and then let's see where it's used.
42.
Right here. DNN menu style, blah, blah, blah. So you could, if we were to remove this line, that's going to get rid of the DNN menu. And then to the other point that Reza was making in terms of making a pane, that here's the definition of content pane versus the P175.1 pane. With a little bit of work, you can create a pane. Create a div somewhere with an ID called menu, or
in this case, like see where it says there is already a div ID navbar, right?
Yeah.
And I think right there, inside of there or above there, just you can play with it, right, and see what's right for you. But either place, you can just copy that, the one that's row. Where it's the content pane, because that goes all the way across, right? So you don't even have to worry about all this col MD12. Find one that you're like, ooh, I'd like one of these up there, right? And you find it down in your HTML, copy from where row pane div is, because that's all these HTML is just boxes within boxes within boxes. They just hide the borders. But if you turned all borders on, you just see it's all a bunch of boxes. And so you're putting one box that knows to hold the items inside. That's why you see like 2 of them, 8, 4, right? But if you say 12, that's the full span. And so you would just take that one and like Dale was about to do their menu pane, right? And now you have a place to drop modules in.
Yep. And so you could drop your custom menu in there and you're good to go. It's not that hard. It does take a little bit of experimentation, and Reza's suggestion of creating a copy keeps you out of the trouble of, well, I just
break your site. Yep.
Yeah.
not just on update, but if you mess this up, your whole site won't, the home page isn't mad everywhere.
Yep.
One last little caveat or note there, if you're going to do that technique, always, like Dale was showing, there's other files that match the name of the one you're editing. And so be mindful that maybe there's a home.css, or on your skin, if you're using a third-party skin, that layout might have its own CSS and JavaScript file. And if you want to point to those, that's what it's going to do when you copy. That's fine. But if you're like, no, I want to tweak the CSS too, just make a copy of the CSS, rename it, and then change the HTML that's pointing
the reference to it.
Point to yours. And now you can customize safely and not be broken by updates to the theme.
I think there's
page builder too.
I think there's probably some good resources on basic skinning techniques too that you could look for, DNN theming or DNN skinning that you could get some ideas about.
Yeah, this is very Googleable.
Yeah. All right. So that will at least get you started, and feel free to submit questions if you get stuck, but that's the starting spot for that.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. Thanks for addressing my question. That covers it very well. I have not had the opportunity to use that NavXP menu yet, and it sounds like that's the solution. So I'll get into it.
Yep, there's a lot of power there if you dig into it in terms of options that you can do. Let's see, I was looking at, if you're looking at a menu here like the About Us, you can change that so that, for example, when somebody clicks your About Us, it opens up a blank page or a named page, whatever. So there's options in terms of how those links work. There's other things that you can do within that. So, and of course, your ordering of the menu is up to you as well. So
how about, you made me think of something. Can I make a page link that includes a query string parameter at the end of the URL in here?
I think so, but I don't know.
Well, so yeah, it's okay. I don't want to spend your time doing that. Made me think of it.
No, this is an easy one to test. So I've got that on the About Us page. So if we go to I got to save it. We go to About Us. Yeah, there's lots more. There's documentation on NavXP, so I would run through that.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Cool. So
you have the ability to use my tokens too in there to replace and dynamically generate the names. So,
well, yeah, okay.
Yes.
That opens it wide up.
Use a token.
Yep, I think.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Are those profiles additive, or are they? You have one profile active on the others?
So I think it's one in this. So it targets profiles for different security roles and order them in the order they should be filtered. Users will see the first profile that matches their security. So, I quietly did back-end menu first and front-end menu second. And that was, so people who are in the roles that get back-end menu get that first. So I think it's one profile or the other. But then within the profile itself, I think that there are ways to determine permissions. Let me see if I've got visibility can be tied to a token, so you could hide. You could have a token that determines whether or not an option is available. So even within the menu, you can bring in and hide things.
And think about this, in the 115 that's coming out, you'll be able to have a token that runs a workflow and returns back the answer. So you can get this is one of those great places where one token dropped can execute a whole lot of logic
to decide.
And then, and then give you just a true false as what the thing would return as a parameter, right?
So the crash course I got on this today was from Andre Nemes. Is it Nemes? That I would say it. And
Lovingly called Nemesis.
Nemesis. And so he answered my question, but then he was excited to show me that he's working on Page Builder itself. Let's go back here. That Page Builder doesn't have any icons associated with this content. And he's got a version of this that's coming out that has icons. So the same icons that you pick for your entities, like locations, if that had an icon with it, it would show up to the left of that, and the ability to override it on the menu itself. So by default, you would have the ability to show the icons that you're selecting on the entity, and then the ability to override it as needed. So other niceties coming out in future releases. I don't think that's making 1.15, but he's got it on the list, and so hopefully Reza will pull that in. I think he's got all the files done and everything, so it's just a question of somebody pulling it in to a future release. Cool. So beyond that, last week, over the course of this last week, I saw there's a question on the community forum. There's just some general excitement about, hey, can we run, how do we get things to show up as running a website as an app, being able to get it to easily go on to the face of a mobile phone so that it feels like an app. And just since I thought I would bring this up as a general topic, since there were 3 or 4 people that jumped in and said, hey, yeah, this is cool, I'm looking for the answer to that. So I don't know, anybody want to take the opportunity to comment about what you're, beyond the obvious, what you're hoping to accomplish with this one?
I think you might be talking to me on that one.
Perhaps.
So yeah, I just, like it says, but I'll say it out loud. I built a little Ditty website, put some journal entries on the screen, gives people the ability to add a journal entries. And I want it to look like an app because it's going to feel and operate very much like an app. So I just want to make it easy for someone who visits my website to click a button or something similar to put this as an icon on their home screen like other apps would be. And I want this to have wide acceptance. I wanted to make it very easy to add. So to make people jump through hoops to get a website onto their home screen as an icon. And I also want to control what the icon looks like. I don't want it to be some screenshot. So that's what I'm trying to do. Jump onto the home screen with a nice looking icon. That's it.
Sure. If you could have a button that said install as app, it would look kind of like they had gone to the App Store and gotten it, and yep. So I know we're thinking about trying to find a way to do that. It's it certainly hasn't bubbled up to the top of things yet, but
and there was, if you anyone that's been around a while, there was a feature in settings that was something about enable mobile or something like that. And I believe, I'll double check, but there was some third-party thing that kind of takes and makes it look like an app and puts it on a phone and stuff. And it was one of the first things ever built with it. And they changed their API or something in their code like massively. So it didn't really work. So we just kind of hid it for now. But let me find out if that was actually this. And I can take a look at what was there and what it would take to maybe bring that back, and it would just be native, But I need to refresh I never could get it to work, and then I finally was like, "What is this?" And they were like, and I think it was supposed to do this. But
was that to control the appearance of the website when it's being shown on a small screen, or because really the task that I'm looking for is how do I get that icon made?
Yeah, no, I think it's the second, and that's why it was deceptively worded, and I thought it was that. And I think at the end of the day, what it really did was there is something that lets you kind of publish out that icon and that what would be on a home screen of an app to launch then it in a kind of, it's like a little shell, almost like an iframe type thing this thing does that runs it within there then, so you're not just launching their random browser or something like that. And it was probably using like the Chrome type engine or something to run it. So let me see what that was, or if there's some other options like this of how can we make a connector or something that will let you like push through the Apple or Google channel to someone's phone. You know, it'd be really cool if you could expose a QR code or something. And one thing I've noticed too on the phones, it's one of those Meinhof whatever effect where like once you start seeing or talking about a thing, you see it everywhere. I'm like, just QR codes are taking over my life now, everywhere I look. And there's some really cool things. And I noticed on the devices, you know, we're always showing, pull your camera up and point. When you do that, it usually pops a little link up and it wants to do it in a browser. When you kind of, I don't know how it is on Android phones, but I'm sure they have a same thing. You kind of swipe up on an iPhone and it gives you these little icons that are things like your camera. Instead, there's actually a QR one now. And there's a built-in QR reader on these phones that will actually not just show you a link, but take you there and run actions, do things. So it's like, you know, as that becomes more common, I think, and just automatic, you could have a thing that's like, oh yeah, I want this on my phone, you know, and boom, it'll launch this thing we're talking about and get it on there. That would be my vision, is whether it's through QR or whatever, but you enable something and have the means by which to have your users go, yeah, I want this on my mobile. And it's not like, oh great, go make a bookmark and, you know, in a browser. It's actually like able to push it like it's an app.
Well,
they can say, yeah, I want to take this app on my phone. They'll get a text or something, you know, we'll make a workflow, we'll figure it out. But wouldn't that seems like kind of forget the technical part, you're looking for something like that as a user experience, maybe, right? To make it really easy to have this be kind of natively accessible on your mobile.
Right, but, you know, and very similar to what you just described, which I'm very interested in. The thought occurred to me that if I were to make an app that made it easy to put icons on the home screen, you know, I know an app can do it. They do it every time one gets installed. So what if there were an app that made icons? So other people could call the app, you know, it could be out there for all of us who want to do this thing. So,
and that's a good point. It may be solved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think maybe Mark's saying though, and that's kind of, I think Bogdan's philosophy about don't make the world's biggest app that does everything, and make these almost like little micro apps that can be exposed as services then, right? That you can consume with your other apps.
Right.
Yeah, I think this is just very timely. The whole world is certainly running to mobile. So if we can use Plantain app to generate great backend, you know, have all the capabilities, but we don't have to get into iOS or Android and just, you know, expose it on a device. It's very, very cool. There's another case, and it was answered in this question. I'm trying to remember who answered it. Roberto, and talking about Autolo. Roberto, you're actually on the line here today if you wanted to comment, but I am going to look at this ADALO, whatever it is, because the idea of being able to have an app that kind of runs as a front end and consumes Plantain app as a nice back end is one of the stories we're interested in telling, to be able to say, you know, they've got a low code over here that does a nice front end, a low code over here that does a tremendous amount of work and has a, you know, related back end. That's certainly, again, with what Reza said, not building the world's biggest app, using these great tools for what they're good at.
Robert, if you can answer a question, how much does that app from that source, how much does it use your DNN backend?
Was that me?
Roberto, yeah. So, you know, when you make your Adalo app, how much is it connected to your DNN instance or your Plantain app instance?
I see Roberto's on the call, but he's muted and may not be actively participating. So
AFK, as the kids like to say. Away from the keyboard.
Yeah, I
Oh.
saw that link to Adolfo.
In,
and
in
I-
games and things, they'll be like, sorry, AFK.
Well,
I play with my
Kids.
10-year-old a lot.
yeah, I'm still catching up with those acronyms. I have to, thank God Google lets me figure them out. So, you know, this plan here doesn't break the bank. You know, I'm going to figure it out on the free plan, but if you had a real app and it was doing the right things and interacting through APIs, you know, $50 a month is certainly very reasonable. So
Yeah, right, Dale. You know, this task has like several options to go down. And like one, we make a website that just has an icon and it goes to the website. Two, you make an app that consumes your website resources. Or three, and I just want to throw it out there, you know, a progressive web app is also an option. And I think that's probably something that Plant an App might be interested in pursuing, the ability to pump those out. So, you know, I would think that it would be in your interest because, you know, you want to encourage people to use Plant an App, and that would be something a lot of us would be interested in. So, you know, we have all these options, and it's going to take some research to figure them out.
Definitely.
well, very good. We've had an engaged conversation for the last hour, and I thank you for all that attended. We'll put this up on YouTube and do it again next week.
Was there anything that, I know in Cafe I mentioned that there were some things we were talking about and that we could talk about them here. Did anyone feel like something wasn't covered? Like, I'm available if someone wants to chat, or we can make sure we talk about it either in next Cafe or next Campfire. See, Jen, I saw you there. Ah, okay. I didn't know if you had the, I think child portals was one of the things we were talking about, so.
Actually, I wasn't talking about child portals.
Yeah,
was
no, I
talking
see
about-
that now. I just saw your chat pop up and I thought it was that, but.
But before I was talking more about the fact that we just have we have multiple domain names that go to the same actual portal, exact actual instance. And it is sort of, I am sort of making use of the different menus and different skins based on who the users are. But because we share modules and it's so much less complicated if it's just all integrated. That was just what my question was, because we have like USPA.org and then also parachutist.com, but they're actually going to the same portal.
And then what's not working with that?
Nothing's not working yet because I haven't fully transitioned over, but it was
I
just
see. I see.
It was about licensing and making sure that everything was smooth with it, and I just kind of put a red flag in my brain when everybody started talking about that.
Yeah. So I think in that use case, I'll double check this, and so take it as this is what I think we have coming or in place, is that we've done some adjustments to the licensing engine and stuff to be able to support that, right? So take price out of it for a minute. I'm just saying the capability is there then, because we already know that you're already using it from a DNN standpoint. Technically, it's feasible to have these things render, and it's really the same site. We're just saying I have some aliases and things, you know? So then it just comes to, will our licensing go, hey, this domain isn't licensed, even though the page would render? And I believe that we have already solved that because people kind of already had that situation. It just comes down to, I guess, just saying like, is that an acceptable use case here and shouldn't trigger additional licensing and things? So that I'm going to leave as a question mark. I can tell you what I think, and I think it should be an acceptable use case. But final decision hasn't been made there just because I don't think it's officially come up yet. So we can take that and run it down and get some clarity on that. But I think it is very doable.
Or even if it's just like an extra add-on or something, because if there's really no, you know, it's just the domain name itself. You know, just like multiple domain names, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, the idea though is that like site A, siteb.com, both of those, that either one that I type in is really just running on the same DNN portal. Is it behaving and presenting itself differently, or it's just truly a, here was this other domain, maybe I used to have this and people still try to go to it, so I want to switch them over here? Or is it like I want them to keep thinking they're on that other site, that other domain name, but the functionality is all the same? Like, are the logos the same and stuff like that? Or does it matter that they're named different things?
One's our magazine. And so it forwards, if you do the one domain, it'll go right to the magazine. And otherwise, it's the normal site where they can do everything else.
Okay.
But the magazine is kind of a different format, and it's drawing on the same set of data.
Right. And right now, we don't have any kind of functionality. If the member logs in, they don't have anything, useful if they log into the magazine site, but that's just been one of the talks, that they want to present member only content and things like that. But everything is so integrated that, I mean, I'm fine if it's an extra cost. I just want to make sure that it's possible without paying exactly double, or.
So just so I'm super clear, there is only one DNN actual portal at play here.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't think, like, when you say they're tightly coupled, they're the same site. They just have awareness on how to like present themselves differently based on the domain.
Different menu, different skin, very similar modules.
Yeah, that should all keep working. And like I said, the only thing that could potentially trip it is the licensing engine kind of going, hey, you're licensed against this domain, not this one. But I know that it supports one license covering aliases or different names, right? Like that we did kind of recently. Someone had a kind of a similar situation, and it was tripping the licensing up, unintentionally, and so I think we fixed that. And so, yeah, I don't think you'll have a problem.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Okay, so that's our hour and plus. We'll see you guys next week at about the same time. Thanks for coming.